Hello and welcome. I am the Armchair Audiophile, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Shuoer Singer. This is a really interesting IEM because, as we all know, last year one of the main hype IEMs was the Shuoer Tape at $130, bringing you a 10mm dynamic and quote-unquote electrostatic driver. And now they're back with a $75 model promising an 8mm dynamic and quote-unquote electrostatic driver. Interestingly enough, a fellow reviewer just before shooting this video reached out and let me know that the company that actually developed that driver says that Shuoer is misrepresenting what it is to some degree, and they're calling it a magnetostatic driver. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it's apparently a proprietary technology, and Shuoer did not develop it. It's from a technology development firm that has licensed it to be produced by several companies in South Korea. But getting back to the Singer, it is, as I said, $75. It has 32 ohms, 8mm dynamic, combined with a, I guess, magnetostatic driver, and let's get into it. So the box is lovely. I mentioned in the Shuoer Tape review that I liked their round box, but noted that it could be an issue logistics-wise as far as wasting shipping space, and they have switched to a square box. The outer sheath here is actually on there pretty good. Okay, with the outer shell off, the box opens. That's nice, revealing a carrying case, also nice. We see they have improved upon the really cool but frankly strange and kind of impractical round metal UFO operation that we got with the Shuoer Tape. For some reason, they've got this little piece of plastic covering the logo. Let's go ahead and open that up. It really is a nice case. Okay, in here we've got the Shuoer Singer, and as you can see, they've switched to a 2-pin connector after having some QC issues with the MMCX connectors on the tape. And doubly interesting, it comes on a balanced cable right out of the box. Now, this is something I've basically never seen before on any of my personal IEMs, and it's something I'd like to see hi-fi focused companies do more, just as at this point, even players $200 and below are offering balanced connections, and you've got the Ear Studio ES100 at about $100 that has a balanced connection, and I really do think this is the way to go. It doesn't cost them really anything extra, and it saves me the trouble of having to buy a balanced connector. Interestingly enough, it appears that the nose of the unit is screw-on. I'm not sure if that means there are multiple filters or if they just want you to have an easier way to change a clogged filter, but that's intriguing. Anyway, let's get on up close here. They are a stainless steel shell, clearly indicated left and right, and they've got a bunch of copy on them. This was a weird decision on Shuoer's part, but okay, I'll take it. Put that down. Let's see what we've got in the accessories. We have some more ear tips. These look like foams. 2 different bores of silicone tips, it appears. And 2 more of the little nose cone filters. They're not a different color than the ones that came on it, so I really have no idea if they're a different filter or if they're just replacements. It doesn't say anything about this in the marketing copy anywhere that I've seen, so that's probably an email to Linsol to figure that out. They've also included, if I can get it out of the box here, just tear that a little bit, a 2.5mm to 3.5mm single-ended adapter for those of you who aren't running a balanced source. Now this they didn't have to do, but Lord, do I appreciate it. So let's go ahead and pop that over here and get rid of the box. Let's go ahead and get these in my ears. I've got the high BR5 on deck, if I can get it oriented in the right direction. I've got the KN 4.5 millimeter, 4.4 millimeter Pentacon to 2.5 millimeter adapter. Let's get the tapes in. Tapes, slip of the tongue. The Singers into my ears. I'll note that they're a lot smaller than I expected and that they look in pictures. They're very small, very comfortable and light in the ears. As usual, I'm getting a good fit with the stock tips. God bless my very average ears. Pop that in there. And here we go. So I'm going to start with Michael Jackson's Thriller in DSD. This is going to be my Soundstage Test. For those of you familiar with this track, the background vocals and the sound effects, namely wolf howls and strange little monster noises, really sound like they're coming from a good distance away. And on a unit that has sort of an expansive soundstage, you really get that sense of depth and distance. So I'm going to go ahead and check that out first. I forgot to mention, just before I filmed this, I ran this same playlist with the Shuoer Tape so I could get a good idea of how these sound in comparison. I'll go into that in more detail in another video, but I will be referencing it from time to time in this one. Okay, right off the rip, really good. The footsteps at the beginning, the wolf howl at the beginning. Wow, they sound really out there. This is actually a better sense of depth than I think I was getting from the Shuoer Tapes just a minute ago. Turn it up a little bit. Michael's vocals are nice and clear. This is a really interesting sound. I expected them to sound like mini tapes, but they really have their own character. That's really interesting. So with that smaller 8mm dynamic, there is less of a sort of punch to the bass than I get on the tapes, but overall I think this might be a more balanced signature. And that's not to say they're bass light. The bass is still really tight and articulate. It just doesn't seem to be as thumpy as the tapes are. While the vocals are clear, I think they're slightly recessed, implying a slight V to the overall tuning. The horn section sounds very natural. Not shouty at all. Wow, the wolf howl, about 2 minutes, 45 seconds in, sounds miles away. So I think this is going to be a pass for the Soundstage Test. Good job, Shuoer, on that. So let's go ahead and skip on to the next track here. We're going to be listening to the Gets Gilberto cut of Girl from Ipanema, also in DSD. This is going to be my test of vocal clarity. Right off the rip, very smooth vocals. Very, very balanced and really pleasant expression of the bass guitar. I think it's an upright bass in the left channel. Again, that sense of space and size is really surprising considering how tiny these things are. The hi-hat that's gently tick, 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 ticking away, again in the left in the background of this track, is, it sounds like it's a few feet away from me in the room, almost like listening to a set of speakers. Just waiting now for the female vocal track to kick in, coming up right now. No complaints there. There's a little bit of reverb on that female vocal track and getting a good sense of that. Man, this is really nice. I'm really, really impressed with these. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in this track to get to the saxophone solo. That right there. Wow. Smooth, natural, no bite to it. Absolutely lovely. Nothing to complain about. It sounds to me like Shuoer has spent a little bit of time with the tuning after the tapes. Like, I don't think these were developed at the same time and released separately. I think that these were probably developed after, because the overall sense of cohesion is just a little bit better than on the tapes, which is kind of wild for a model that costs $55 less and comes with a balanced cable. Okay, let's move it along. I'm going to be listening to Yoshi Horikawa's Wandering. This is an imaging test. Definitely a better sense of left to right pan on the sort of hiker coming towards you than I got on the tapes. Soundstage is absolutely huge. The birds in this track are placed very specifically. The magnetostatic driver in this is just as fast as it is on the tapes. The percussion in this track tends to smear on a driver that isn't right on top of what's going on, and it is perfect on these. Much like with the other tracks, the bass impact isn't quite as large and significant as it is on the tapes, but again, more balanced. Also notably, the tapes kind of sound like they've got a tiny bit of weirdness going on in the mids. I haven't looked at any graphs of them, but supposedly they've got a weird spike somewhere in the presence region, and you can kind of hear that sometimes on the tape, and I'm not hearing that as pronounced on these, so either I'm just kind of fangirling over a new IEM, or they've worked on the tuning since, and I'm inclined to think it's the second, given that I was just listening to the tapes about 15 minutes ago. Yeah, the tapes, Soundstage is average to a little bit above average. These are well above average in Soundstage presentation. The video will probably come out after this, but I listened to the TFZ T2 Galaxy a couple of days ago, and those, really didn't have notable soundstage at all, and these are wiping the floor with those. Okay, I'm going to keep it on moving. To round out the test, I've got Woods by Tory Lanez. This is just a big fat old trap banger, and I'm going to be testing bass on this because there is just big thumping bass on this track. Wow. Same as everything else, more balanced than the tapes, a little bit less mid bass, but it's still extending all the way down to where I'd want it to, and it's plenty punchy. Again, if not as punchy as the tapes. I didn't expect these to be such a competent all-rounder, but so far I haven't hit a genre that I wouldn't want to listen to on these. Frankly, these may be the best IEMs I have heard in months. That slight V that I was hearing, in the first track is still present, but it's not particularly deep. It's not anywhere near as deep and sucked out as the TFC T2 Galaxy, and sounds smoother and more linear than the tapes. Although, I will say, I'm not sure the bass is as controlled as on the tape. In terms of, attack and decay, the bass on this track sounds just a hair woollier than on the tape. Neither of them are woolly, but to the extent that expresses bass texture, it's not as tight as the tapes, but not by a huge margin. Okay, I'm going to pop these out and we're going to talk about them. Oh man. Shuoer Singer. I gotta give it to Shuoer because they came out of nowhere in the last year or so and have just been killing it with every model. I think these are a significant step forward for the company in the sense that they're bringing more or less the same overall quality as the tapes for now $55 less. When I got into this hobby about 5 years ago, if you told me that you'd be able to get something this good in a package this complete for less than $100, it would have blown my mind. We're talking about, the ZS6 coming out for 50 or 60 bucks, and that's what you were getting at this price point 4 or 5 years ago, and oh my God, there's no comparison. These are fire. They're absolutely fire, and I think I'm going to be listening to them for the rest of the night because they are wonderful. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to be doing a shootout between these and their big brothers, the tapes, at some point in the near future. Little Shuoer shootout. But, man, so they're a slightly different tuning. I think they are a little bit less bass elevated than the tapes. They have smoother, more linear mids and vocal presentation, but the speed and extension of the treble is identical. I suspect that it's the same exact driver, and I'm not really sure how they manage to cut so much off the price in so short a time. But whatever they're doing, thank you, Shuoer, and God bless you folks, because they are clearly listening, they're clearly trying, and I think we're going to see impressive things from them in the future. With that, I'd like to invite you back to the channel in the near future to check out some other stuff. I've got a long-term update on the HiBR5 coming, obviously the T2 Galaxy, deep diving on the LCD1, Galaxy Buds. I'd also like to mention that we have a Patreon now. If you like the channel, if you'd like to see more frequent videos and more higher end stuff, by all means, please consider donating. I would appreciate it immensely. We have a private Discord server for Patreon supporters. I'd like to build that out into a meaningful community. And that's it for me, the Armchair Audiophile, reminding you that life is too short for bad headphones.